What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Embers. We got a very special guest joining us today, comedian John Branyan. So excited to dive into his story and what brought him into comic work and all that stuff and how he landed where he is. So super grateful for that and what other jokes and bits that he might have lined up for us. So all that kind of fun stuff. So, John, thank you for joining us on the Embers. And yeah, tell us, I guess, a little bit about yourself and how you got into it, obviously. So, um,
Oh, I'm happy to be how I got into the podcast here. I got an email from you
yeah, how
asking me to come.
wormhole it is.
hmm Yeah, had I've always had an interest in comedy. I've always been interested in stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
And so when I was a little kid, I would watch it, and I just thought it was fascinating. And so uh, a few years ago, quite a few years ago, actually, in the early '90s, I decided I would go down and try an open mic just to get it out of my system. And boom, here I am, 30.
That's
Now I'm
awesome.
on your podcast as a comedian. So
Yeah, you've made it big. You've made
yeah,
it
that was what I thought. And I thought if I can just get on the Embers podcast,
Yeah. Yeah,
then I
yeah.
will have arrived.
This is all a facade, by the way. This is just like one of those Zoom
Green
backgrounds.
screen.
Yeah, it's just a
Yeah.
big green
That's a
screen.
great background.
Yeah.
It looks like
Yeah.
a house. It's very convincing.
Um, so you work with was it Dry Bar Comedy? Is that right? Is that
I have a couple of dry bar specials. Yeah.
yeah, I saw some of those. So I guess at what point in your career, like was it a side hustle that became like, okay, I'm gonna do this full time? Like what was that transition point or you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. No, it was
Yeah.
very much a side hustle. It was, yeah, and it should. Most people should leave it as a side hustle. I think that it's a great way to make uh, an another stream of income. But it's a really tough way to make your primary source of income. And
Okay.
a lot of people are like, I just want to be full time. Man, I don't understand why you would want to be full time. I think that it's great if you can go out on the weekends. You could do shows, from time to time and get paid for that, versus having to keep the lights on and buy groceries by telling jokes. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I was a part-time stand-up for most of my career, about 15 years, where I had a day job of some sort, and then I did comedy on the weekends. And I had a there were two comedy clubs in Indianapolis, which is fairly close to where I live, and so I could drive down there during the week. If I had a week where I was working at the club, it was like Tuesday through Saturday was how the shows stacked up then. It's shows are not as numerous as they used to be in the 90s. Now it's mostly weekends.
Hmm.
But I could go down there after work. I put in a full day's work, and then I could drive down in the evenings and do comedy and sort of double dip. I did that for, again, most of my career.
Really?
Yep.
And at what age did it really start to take off, did you feel?
Uh, it took off when um, I had a guy in out on the West Coast who saw my act back in the days when there were videotapes. You guys are too young to know what videotapes are. Neither one of you know what I'm talking about, but it
You
was
clown so much.
Yeah.
your
Believe it or
grandparents
not,
would
I know what
probably,
Blockbuster is, so
right. If you have some really old people in your life that you can ask about videotape, they will be able to tell you what it is. And I had a guy who saw that videotape, and he contacted me and said, I would like you to come to do a week at the Improv out in San Diego. And so I thought it was a joke. I thought he was, pranking me. And I said, I mean, who is this? And he goes, oh, he told me his name, and he said, I want you to come out. And I said, "Are you going to pay for a plane ticket?" And he goes, "Yeah, yeah, I'll pay for the plane ticket and everything." I didn't know. It's the first time I'd ever gotten, you know,
Right,
paid to
like a
do
big
that.
invite, right?
Yeah, the first time anybody had ever actually taken an interest. And so I went out there, and he decided that he wanted to do a one-man show around my stand-up material. And so we started doing that, and I was flying out to Tulsa, Oklahoma every week, and there was a theater out there, and I did a show Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then flew home on Sunday and worked my day job until Wednesday. So I worked Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at my day job, and then flew out. And it just got to where it was too much. I couldn't. It was too much traveling. I still had little kids at home, and it
Right.
was just too much. And so I went to my boss at my day job. I worked at a print shop, and I said, "Hey, I think I'm going to try to do this stand up, and I'm probably going to come crawling back in 6 months and beg for my job back. But I'm going to go do stand up." And they let me go. They let me go and do it, and that was when I went full time. When I just couldn't do both things anymore. It was too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
So would you say that that decision to go full time, was that more based on you had a much greater passion for comedy and stand up than anything else you've done in your life, or you just thought that you ended up being more successful at it and that's why you ended up
I
sticking with it?
had, yeah, I had at the time 2 children, and then we had 4 children altogether. At the time, I had a wife and 2 kids, and so I was primarily motivated by making money to be able to take care of my family, and so I was making enough money as doing stand up. I was actually making more money doing stand up than I was making at my day job. And so that was when I said, okay, I think we can make this transition and be okay. But it really wasn't about pursuing a dream or following my passions. It was much more, uh, it was much more financial than that. It was like, I got to make money to pay the bills. And so that was the decision.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like that a lot. Like, at least for me, I feel like that's pretty much what I do as an engineer. It's not necessarily me being super passionate about it, but pays the
Well,
bill.
Yeah, absolutely.
right. There are a lot of people who have this idea that your job is supposed to bring you some sort of, spiritual fulfillment. There's supposed to be something that you do in your job that resonates with you and elevates with you. And you wake up every morning and you're like, I'm so full of passion for this particular job. And it doesn't work that way most of the time. The reason that people work jobs is because they want to get paid, because they have to buy things.
Yeah.
You have to eat food, and you have to live in a house and buy
Right.
clothes. And so your job affords you that. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with going and getting a job and taking care of your family, paying your bills and not being a burden on society. That's a perfectly legitimate reason,
Yeah.
to have a job. And
Absolutely.
if you can do that job, if you enjoy your job, then that's just another blessing on the top of it. If you actually enjoy what you do, that's a blessing, but it's not necessarily a prerequisite. I mean, you shouldn't pick a job because it fulfills you. I mean, there's a lot of people that have jobs that they just don't like,
Yeah.
but they go and do them anyway, and
Puts food on the
that's
table.
noble. Yeah.
Yeah. So when thinking of your jokes or your acts, would you take what I know I've never asked this question, but did you write them in a way that you thought they were funny, or did you write them in a way that you thought other people would think that they're funny, or both?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, I don't know what other people are going to think is funny. And so all the jokes that I write, I think are funny.
Yeah,
And then I just try them. And sometimes other people think they're funny and sometimes they don't.
right.
Um, but the only way to do comedy is you have to rely on your own sense of humor. you have to go, okay, well, I think this is funny, and so I'm going to do it. And then if the audience agrees, it's great. If the audience doesn't agree, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm wrong. Doesn't mean that it's not funny. It just, it may not resonate with enough other people that I can keep it in the act. But yeah, the only thing I have to gauge is what I think is funny. I have no idea what the audience is going to laugh at.
I mean, that makes sense. Obviously, you got a pretty good sense of humor. So, I mean, I would
Well,
say
everybody has a sense of humor. Every everybody has a sense of humor.
that's fair.
That's the reason I can do what I do, is because I stand up in front of a group of people and I say things, and then if it resonates with their sense of humor, then we all get the joke.
Right.
Um, and so it really it mostly boils down to just confidence. You just have to go, well, I think this is funny. I'm going to say it, and I don't really care if they disagree. If the audience disagrees, they don't think it's funny. Sometimes it's because I didn't say it right. Sometimes it's because it's not constructed correctly. And sometimes it's just because they have a different sense of humor than what I have. And so,
Right.
uh,
Like obviously, the Three Little Pigs bit might be the most unique, like comedic bit I've ever seen, but I was busting up laughing by the time I was done with it. I was like, what is happening throughout this whole thing? But it was so intriguing and it was really funny.
well, what
So
is happening? Do you have any idea why that's funny?
it's you're blending a nursery rhyme, I guess, with Shakespeare. So yeah,
Right.
it's
Right.
but
I did not know that that was going to work. Yeah, it's easily the most successful bit that I've ever done, and I had no idea that was gonna work. I thought
blow
it was
up.
funny, but I didn't think it was gonna work with audiences. I thought it was too long. I thought it was too convoluted. I thought it was too much of a stretch, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I thought there was a lot of things that were wrong with it. So nobody was more surprised than me when that took off.
That's awesome.
I mean, yeah,
That's
that happens to artists sometimes. Like, they sometimes people like make really like let's say like an artist comes out with like an album and they might title the album like what they think is going to be like the number one hit song, and then it's just one of like the more low-key songs, like songs that they didn't put as much effort into, but they're like, wow, this
goes
is,
big.
you know
Yeah.
what, I'll take it. Yep, I meant for it to be a hit. Yep. It was
Yeah.
all
You're gonna
intentional.
play it all off.
Yeah.
Yeah, you cannot predict what the audience is going to. You can't predict what the public is going to like. You can't intentionally, say, well, I'm gonna do this, and this is gonna be a hit,
Right.
and then I'm gonna not work on this, and it's probably not gonna go anywhere, because you just can't predict any of it. It's
Right.
it's all it's all in bigger hands
Right.
than ours.
Yeah. Yeah. So considering, everyone has their own sense of humor, how would you describe your sense of humor? And do you think your sense of humor has changed from you were a kid to now?
Um, well, I mean, what is a sense of humor? I mean, what is it?
Good
When
question.
we ask somebody about their sense of humor, what are we asking them to describe? What is it? What is it? It's
Like
like
what?
well, we have other senses, right? We have a sense of smell, and what does that do for us? That's how we can detect, smells. That's how we can sense things in the air, smoke and Fruit Loops, and we can smell those things.
Yeah.
And we have a sense of sight, and what does that do? Well, that's how we can see things. It brings in light, and we can detect things visually. And a sense of hearing lets us detect sound. And so the sense of humor does what? It detects when things are funny, when things are humorous.
Right.
Um, and so the thing that's different about the sense of humor is that it doesn't it doesn't detect the same things in all people. I mean, there's some people have a sense of humor that's darker, that they have they like darker comedy or bluer comedy, and then there's other people who like puns, and then there's slapstick, and so all of these things uh, are you detect whether they're funny or not using your sense of humor. But there's some constants, and the thing about a sense of humor for everybody is that it's always connected to some sort of pain. There's always something is wrong, um, and your sense of humor detects, hey, these these things are not as they should be. Something is out of order here, and the response is laughter. And you mentioned it earlier. I said, why is the Three Little Pigs funny? Well, because it's a child's nursery rhyme and it's Shakespeare. So you've got like the simplest sort of thing, which is a
Right.
child's story, and you connect it to this vastly complicated language. Well, those two things don't fit together. They shouldn't belong together, and yet there they are.
Right.
And so my sense of humor is not really any different from anybody else's. It's just you take two things that don't fit together and you put them together. And that at a basic level, that's all a sense of humor is. And once you know that, then you can start looking at comedy and you'll see it. You see that pattern over and over and over again. There's people will, like, guys will dress up like women, like Mrs. Doubtfire or something like that, or
Right.
Tootsie. And it's like, well, why is that funny? Because that's not a woman, but
Right.
but he's dressing like a woman, and it just goes. You see it everywhere, and so my sense of humor is like everybody else's, and you just pay attention to two things that don't belong together, and you just put them together.
Like anything abnormal that you would find like funny. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it has to be truthful. I mean, it can't be if you just take two things that don't belong together and jam them together, you can end up with absurdity, and that's funny to a certain level, but not the same. Comedy has to always be truthful, and so you have to
Okay.
have two things that don't fit together, but they actually are together. Um, you can't force them together,
Right.
and then and you just see it everywhere in stand up. Um, guys like who are your favorite comics? I mean, besides me, I'm obviously at the very top.
Yeah.
Who would be the other?
Bob Smiley's.
Yeah, I'd
He's
say him.
he's really good.
Okay.
Try to think of somebody else that I can think of off the top of my head. I watched Nate Bargatze. He's pretty funny.
Okay.
But
Right. So Nate and Bob have completely different styles. Smiley's a lot more rapid fire and a lot more absurdist. But he will say things uh, like he's got a bit about calling the hospital when his first child was in the process of being born, and he's on the way to the hospital, and his wife is in labor, and so as he's driving to the hospital, he's calling them, and he's saying, "Yeah, my wife is in labor. She's getting ready to have a baby. And I'm not sure what to do." And so he says that the person on the other side goes, "Okay, is this her first baby?" And he goes, "No, this is her husband."
oh, right.
And so that's the sort of thing that's Smiley's sensibilities.
Right.
But what is that? Okay, so a play on words is, well, she says, "Is this your first baby?" And he rather than understanding what she's actually asking, which is, I'm asking the father, is it the first baby? He takes it like she thinks
Literal.
she's actually talking to the first baby.
Right.
Mm.
Right.
And so you've got the idea of, is this her first child? Fits in both of those worlds. It could be her asking the father, is this your first baby? Or it also could be the way it's phrased. It could be, am I talking to her first child on the
Right.
phone?
Right.
And so both of those are potentially true. And that's why it's funny. It's
Okay.
not absurd, but it's funny because either one of those interpretations could be the correct interpretation, right?
Right.
But obviously it's not the first baby, because so that's absurd.
Right.
But
Right.
because of the way the phrasing is, it could be true, and that's the key to comedy. That's a lesson that you didn't ask for, but I gave it to you.
I'm willing to learn anything.
Mhm.
Uh, you had a like thinking. There was a moment that I watched it where you were talking about Adam and Eve and God removing a rib to make a woman. And it's like,
Mhm.
oh, that's the bone that allowed us to read minds, right?
Yeah,
Delivery is probably awful. I'm not a comedic person. Like I can't deliver as well. But
that's the rib we used to use to read minds.
yeah, it was really funny. I died laughing because I was like, man, I wish we had that.
Well,
Yeah, yeah.
well, that's
No,
another one that I didn't know that I didn't know that that line was going to work. The first time I
really?
did that line, yeah, I just thought I'll throw it out there and see what happens. Yeah, it's all a science experiment. It's all just try a joke and try a joke and try a joke.
Now, is it more like adaptability? So, for instance, like let's say you have the same, like I don't know, lineup. I don't know what you guys have to do, but and you're like going to Nashville one week, and then the next week you're going to like San Diego. Do you have to like think about, okay, how do I want to deliver this? This is a completely different crowd. Like, how do I, or do I change the wording to adjust to like their slang? Like, you know what I mean? Or
Yeah, no, I can't do that. There may
okay,
be other people that do that, but I don't. Um, people are uh, people are how they are, and I am
right,
how I am, and I can't really morph into different audiences. And like I said, I don't even know what they're going to think is funny. I don't know what
right,
they think is funny in California. I don't know what they think is funny in New York. I can just do what I think is funny, and
right, right.
so if it I've been in front of some crowds before that just did not appreciate what I was doing, and it doesn't happen real often, but it does happen from time to time where I just get in front of a crowd and they're like, yeah, they don't care for this, and so
Mm.
not much I can do about that.
Right, of course. I mean, like, it's
And
the
what are those experiences like on stage? Like when you see the crowd may not be vibing. Like, do you ever have like, okay, they're not flowing with this direction that I'm going in. Let me change it up and use some stuff I have in the back burner, or do you just stick to what you originally planned?
I usually, when the audience is not with me, I start talking directly to them, rather than trying to do material. I will just
Mm.
ask them. I've got a few questions that I will ask to try to get them talking, and then I can
feed
incorporate
off of
what
that.
they're saying, yeah, into the act.
That makes sense.
And that sometimes will work. It's not it doesn't feel legitimate to me. It feels like cheating to me. But the name of the game is just having the audience go, yeah, well, we had a good time. And so if they had a good time just talking about just telling their stories, then uh, that's what we do.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice. Well, so I also what was this David Letterman thing that went on? Do you know what I'm talking about when I mention that?
Mhm.
What was that all about?
Yeah. How did you hear about that? Were you listening to
Uh
our podcast or?
yeah, I was,
Yep.
but I can't tell you everything.
Yeah. I had a uh, I had a plan to get on the David Letterman show. And are you guys even familiar with David Letterman? Like, do you
Yeah.
know
I know
about the
I'm
name?
David.
not really familiar.
Okay. So he used to have a thing called the top 10 list that he would do every night. And it was always just a thing like, top 10 uses for a shoehorn other than, putting on shoes, or top 10 pizza toppings that also work as breakfast cereal. I mean, they were just ridiculous things that he would do. Top 10 top 10 things that Madonna is going to do now that she's retired, stuff like that.
Okay.
And so So I made a top 10 list of reasons why David Letterman should have me on his show. And I made up these, I put them on a postcard, and then I printed up thousands of those postcards and distributed them at my shows and told the audience, I'm trying to get on David Letterman. So would you guys take some of these cards? The number one reason I left blank, and it just said because, and then they put their name, thinks he would be a great guest. And so they basically would sign it, the top 10 list. And then they had to put a stamp on it and just drop it in a post box. Well, I didn't know what would happen, but I distributed quite a few of those postcards, and I got a phone call from the producer of the David Letterman show, and her name was Zoe. And she called. She said, "This is Zoe with the David Letterman show. Are you the guy who's sending us all of these postcards?" And I said, "Yeah." Are they the yellow ones? I want to make sure that they weren't getting,
Multiple
different
people.
postcards from different people. She goes, "Yeah, little yellow postcards." I said, "Yep, that's me." She said, "Well, stop it." And I said, "Zoe, this is bigger than you and me. I can't stop it now. I've distributed these postcards. I don't know, they're on their way. I can't make it stop happening." And she said, "Well, it's not going to work. That's not how we book comedians." And I said, "Okay, fair enough." I said, "What should I do?" And she said, "Send in a videotape and we'll look at it." Well, they weren't interested in having me come on. So I got a letter, I don't know, a month or two later that said, "Thanks for submitting this, but we're not going to have you on the show." And so that's it. That was what I got. I got an official rejection letter from the David Letterman show for all of my effort.
That's
This is bigger than me and you now.
yeah. Listen, you're gonna have to stand there with a baseball mitt because they're coming in. So
I don't know how many they got, but it was enough that they actually called me. So
I would imagine it's quite a bit if they had to reach out and say, "Please, no more."
well, it was by design. They were all postcards and they were like a fluorescent yellow. And so my thinking was that there would be enough of them in the mailbag. They get a lot of mail at
Right.
at the time. It was CBS, and so I wanted them to be standing out in all of that mail. And so yeah, if they got hundreds of them every single day for a period of time, then it would attract
They'd be
attention.
like, "Hey, we keep getting this yellow fluorescent postcard.
Yeah.
What is happening? Who is this?" Yeah.
Well, there was a bunch of them. There was thousands of them.
That's awesome. I love the amount of work and effort put into it. That's awesome.
Yeah, I worked at a print shop too, so that
Oh,
was
see.
why I was able to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I get it. I worked at a print shop for 3 years and interned at one. So
You know what I'm talking about.
I
then.
do. I get it. So yeah. My name's Tanner Scott. So I always get like, "Are you related to Michael Scott?" I'm like, no. So I want to get run through it. Heard that a lot. So, but yeah, that's cool. Do you have any other like super like kind of fun experiences like that? Or I mean, obviously that's random to like compare to, but like,
Yeah, well, I tried the same thing again a few years later to get on the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon.
oh really?
Yeah, I got a call from them too. It said
So
basically the
awesome.
same thing. Yeah, it's like, stop sending us these postcards. That guy was not as nice as Zoe though. He was kind of mean to me, but
Really?
yeah, he was not amused at all. And so it was a little, that was what finally opened my eyes to how this works. There's a lot of politics in late night television, and so if they want celebrity A on the show,
They
then
need
they
to
will talk
lean.
to the manager. They talk to the manager and try to get that to happen, and that manager will say, "Well, in order to get celebrity A on the show, you have to take celebrity C, who I also manage, and let them do a thing." And I just didn't have that kind of firepower. I didn't have any
Right.
political connections, and so there was no reason for them to put me on their show. There in it for them. This was before there was YouTube and viral videos and all of that. And so that dynamic has changed quite a bit. Social media has social media in a lot of ways has shut out, late night television. There's lots of people who are more famous than some of the people that are on late night, because they have YouTube followings. They've got millions of people that follow them on YouTube, and that's as big an audience as people that watch the Tonight Show. So it's a whole different world now.
Yeah. It makes sense when it's said out loud, just like anything on television, there's politics involved in some way or sort of way. NFL, NBA, some way, MLB, like there's things behind the scenes that people don't always see. So, it makes perfect sense for sure.
Yep. Well, and there's a certain amount of caution that believers should have when you're trying to work your way into some sort of movie or television or social media influencer, or anytime you're trying to amass a platform.
Yeah.
Anytime you're trying to build a fan base, you have to be careful, because fame and notoriety has some intoxicating powers, and if you're not careful, if you're not well grounded, then you start pandering. You start changing who you are and what you do in order to make the audience respond favorably.
Right.
And if you're afraid of falling out of favor with the audience, then that's not a good place to be, because
Right.
then you start to compromise your values and you compromise your beliefs, because, well, I got to work, I don't necessarily believe that this is the right thing to do, but I have to work, and I don't want to lose my fan base. And none of those things are what we're supposed to do as believers.
Absolutely. It's like, I've mentioned it a couple times, but Jesus says it'll be tough for the rich man to inherit the kingdom of God. And I think there's a reason why he says that. When you become self-sustaining and you look at yourself in the mirror as an idol versus upwards, you become not like you don't seek God for anything. Yeah, there's a point in your life where you feel like you are God or whatever, and that's where things get very dangerous. So, yeah.
Well, the rich young ruler, when Jesus said you should follow me, sell all of your stuff and follow me, it wasn't because there was anything wrong with the riches. It's because it was the attitude towards those riches. It was, are you going to value them ahead of me? Are you able to sell these and follow me, or do you have to hang on to those riches? And that's the lesson. And yeah, there are a lot of people who have sold their soul for fame and fortune. There's a lot of people who sold their soul for roles in Hollywood. They have become celebrities because they compromise their values.
Right.
And that's what you get. I've had the OnlyFans phenomenon is sort of you can get famous. You can get famous and you can make money much easier than you used to be able to. You used to have to go to Los Angeles or New York and try out and do things. So now all I need is a camera in your basement. All I need your phone, and you can set up your own media company.
Yeah.
And people will respond. You can get followers, but you just have to be aware of what you're doing and realize that there is a danger in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it seems like there's a randomness to it as well. Like I know people who pretty much just randomly were posting one day on social media and blew up, like posting a video that's not too much different from videos they were posting before, but somehow, some way the algorithm caught it, and then they blew up from that one video. And I have some friends who like continue to be successful after that like initial blow up, and then some who blew up once and then died down again, and they're wondering, well, what happens, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that too is, it is hard on, it's hard on the human spirit. It's hard
Yeah.
on to have to be a one-hit wonder. I'm a one-hit wonder. You know, I've got people know the Three Little Pigs, but that's it. You know, I haven't ascended into the stratosphere. I'm not selling out arenas. You know, and that takes its toll when you have a thing that's a success. There's a voice in your head that goes, "Man, I made it now. You know, things are going to take off from here." And when they don't, it can lead to a lot of depression and a lot of anxiety and a lot of anger. You know, people have drinking problems and they have drug problems, and it's all of that is because of a desperation to be, you know, to be famous, to have a lot of followers and a lot of fans. It can get you if you don't know, if you're not aware, if you don't have a firmly rooted identity in Christ that says, hey, no matter what happens, I am accepted and cared for and I matter. Even if I have zero fans, I still
Right.
matter.
Right.
That's the only way to be grounded, because fame and fortune will just chew you up and spit you out.
Did you ever have moments where people like tried to persuade you to go away from like your clean comedic acts, like to curse or to say things, you know?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah, yeah. Um, but uh, you know, looking back on it, it wasn't. I didn't have the same. Well, I guess I don't know what other people's temptations were, but yeah, I was told, you know, you've got to, if you're going to work in this room, you're going to have to be adult. You're going to have to do adult material. You're going to have to swear some. I had that happen several times on cruise ships where the uh, captain would call me up and say, "Yeah, you have to do an adult show," and I would usually go, "Okay, no problem," and then I would just do the same material that I always do. And they never. But there are a lot of people who would say, "Yeah, you have to compromise. You have to do something or say something or represent something that you don't really represent in order to be in this group, in order for us to promote you." And I just didn't, mostly because I was older. Um, Again, I had a wife and kids, and that was a lot of the driving force. It's like, I'm not going to do anything. I never wanted to do anything that if my kids saw it later, I never wanted to put anything on film or do anything on stage that I would be ashamed to have my kids say. You know, I didn't want to, and I didn't want other people's kids to be watching it and to repeat things that I had said and have their parents go, "Where did you hear that?" You know,
Right.
I always felt like I needed to be genuinely positive. You know, I didn't want people to have to send their children out of the room when I was on stage. And so that was pretty much my guiding principle. And so there was just jokes and material that I would not do. There were shows that I would not do because I already established where the boundaries were. And if things were outside of those boundaries, then I just didn't do them.
Yeah. That's healthy too. I mean, I would think in that source of line of work, it could be easy to blur the lines.
Hmm. Well, I don't think that being a comedian is unique. I think that everybody should have boundaries.
Yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
just because I'm going to be up on stage talking in front of people doesn't mean that my boundaries and my values should be different than the guy who works at the factory.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know,
I just was saying like I feel like there might be more pressure like to do like to act out of your norms.
yeah,
Like by fans, by like producers or whatever, or whoever.
Yeah, again, I don't know. I don't know what other people. I think peer pressure and the desire to be liked and the desire uh, to be included in the group is
Right.
strong for everybody.
Yeah.
And if you have to have a sense of who you are and what your rules are, because no
Right.
one else is going to set them for you. And and people get in a lot of trouble because they just don't know what their rules are. And so they go out and they start doing things, and you'll hear them. If there's a tragedy, somebody somebody's involved in some sort of tragedy, and you'll hear them say things like, I don't know what happened, it's not me. I wasn't behaving like me. It was almost like an out of body experience. And it's
Yeah.
like, I think I understand that, but it comes from not knowing ahead of time, okay, this is where I draw the line. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to be in this situation because my line is way back here. And so if I stop here at this line, I'm not going to be what the disaster is. And that's not, I don't think that's because I'm really smart or really lucky. I think it's just because I was told from a very young age, hey, you've got a responsibility to live the way God wants you to live.
Right.
You can't just do whatever you want. You have to do what's going to please God. And that draws a box that if you stay within that box, I think you avoid a lot of the problems that other people have to deal with.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Well, I know some people who are way more famous than me. I know some people who've got much bigger platforms than me. Um, and I know them well. Um, but they aren't necessarily uh, happier, for having these massive platforms. And in some cases, they're actually miserable
Yeah.
because once you start to get a following, um, it's never enough. You have 100,000 people on your Facebook group, and you're like, man, I got 100,000 people, and then you go, well, why don't I have 250,000? And why don't I have 500,000? This person's got 500,000. You know, and Taylor Swift has how many? She's got
Yeah.
100 million.
Absolutely.
And so it doesn't matter how much you have. Once that gets into you, it's really hard to be content.
Yeah.
And if you're not content, that's just a miserable way to live.
Absolutely. Very well said.
I feel like at that point, when you find your fulfillment in, the people who follow you, then a lot of times, in a lot of cases, probably most cases, people end up searching for fulfillment, more and more fulfillment, like an even greater high than when they first blew up or whatever it might look like. And that's a void that can only be filled by God. Jesus said that he is living water, that, anyone who comes to him will never be hungry or never go hungry again. And anyone who comes to him will never thirst again, because the water that he gives is um, a spring of eternal life. So yeah, it's always important to remember that no matter where you're at, um, on the totem pole, like what your class might be, whether you're like a regular citizen who just you know the people you grew up with, or if you're someone who everyone looks to because you're on TV all the time, or you have like a super successful podcast, or people are always listening to your music, or whatever, maybe like an athlete or a sports player, whatever it may be. Just remembering that one thing, like obviously, like if you're a believer, Jesus is with you, like no matter where you're at um in life, like your highest highs, he's with you, your lowest lows, he's with you, and he is the constant, he is the source.
Absolutely.
So it's remembering what the source is, and not trying to gain energy or gain fulfillment from from other temporary,
From worldly
from
desires.
things that will pass away in this world.
Yeah.
There's, you're exactly right. There are a lot of people who are not famous who look at famous people and go, I would like to have that. And I would like to be that. And it's because they don't have it and have never experienced it. But it's just not all it's cracked up to be. Again, I'm not a household name, but I've had enough fame that I see what happens. And fame is a whole lot of people who you don't know. They're strangers, um,
Mhm.
but they know you. And so it creates a really strange dynamic when you encounter somebody who knows who you are. When somebody calls you by name and you have never met them before in your life, they go, "Hey John, how's it going?" It's like, I don't I don't know who you are.
Yeah,
That
that is a
that
first one.
Yeah.
that did not happen until I started doing comedy and had some notoriety. And so now you have a conversation with a stranger. I mean, you are in Walmart, you go out and you see there's people all around you who don't know who you are, and you
Right.
don't know them. But now they do know who you are, or they think they do because they've seen your material, they've seen you in a movie or whatever, which would be super weird if you were. I've thought about this a lot. If you're Elijah Wood, who played Frodo Baggins, or
Right.
if you're the kid who played Harry Potter, or if you're if you were famous because you're in a movie playing a character, well, now people recognize that character. That's not the same as recognizing you.
Right. Right.
Can you imagine what it would be like having total strangers come up to you wherever you go and wanting to talk to you about this imaginary character that you played in a movie?
You're right.
I mean,
That's all
and
they know. Yeah.
but you have those conversations every day, over and over and over again. It's a brand new conversation for them because they've never talked to you before, but you've had this conversation maybe hundreds of times with people that you don't know. That's what it is to be famous. What it is to be famous is you now owe a conversation to total strangers wherever you go. You're expected to stop what you're doing, whether you're eating lunch or whether you're shopping or whether you're at an amusement park with your kids, whatever it is you're doing, you have to stop it and have this conversation with a complete stranger about something that doesn't really impact your life in any way. It doesn't help you to tell them about what it was like to play Iron Man, you know?
And if
But
you
that's
don't do it, yeah, then you're looked at poorly.
right. Then they think you're a jerk. And
Right.
then they say, yeah, we tried to shake hands with him and he wouldn't even sign my kid's autograph book. And it's like, right, because he signed 1,000 autograph books,
Right.
Yeah.
for all these people. That's what it is to be famous. And again, I haven't done it at that level, but I've done it enough to go, I don't think I want this.
Yeah.
You know, if you're super famous, you can't go to Arby's and get a sandwich. You have
Yeah.
to send somebody to do that. You can't just whip into Walmart, and buy a pair of Crocs because you will get mobbed. And
Yeah.
that's what it is to be famous.
Yikes.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, when you reach a certain level of fame, I mean, it's not kind to you at all. Like, there would be people leaking information about your personal life, and now you have all these like random passerbys knowing details about your personal life that otherwise you would only like your close friends to know, if those
Right.
That
people.
would be my fear, is like
But
family would be my concern. Like
yeah,
if they wanted to like know about me personally, but when my kids or wife got involved, that would be weird for me. Like,
Right. Right. Uh, all of that is unavoidable. You have to take extra steps to not expose your family, your children to that level of, scrutiny. Um, it's just, it's not all it's cracked up to be. And again, when you watch it from the outside, you go, "What would be wrong with that? Wouldn't it be great to have people know your name? Wouldn't it be great to have everybody think that you're wonderful?" And yeah, on the one hand, that would be great. But who are those people? And they're strangers. And there are more important people right next to you. The people in your family, the people in your immediate circle of friends are much more important than 150,000 strangers and their opinion of you.
Right.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's wise. I mean, it's true. Like, just I think, I mean, yeah, just a firm understand. Like, yeah, I think a lot of people look at it like, man, I wish I had that. And then, yeah, when like the proof is on the other side, it's like, do you really want that? Like, to step outside of your house and be in fear of getting mobbed or swarmed by paparazzi, or to do something that you're just absolutely, utterly exhausted, and then you're looked at poorly because you just don't have any energy. You know what I
right.
mean? Or some kid in a wheelchair, and you just like, you're looked at poorly because you didn't stop and say hi. You know what I mean? Not trying to label anything. It's just things can get twisted badly, especially when you're famous. So
Well,
Mhm.
we only
yeah.
have so much bandwidth. We can only pay attention to so many things.
I
We
get
just
burnout hanging out. Like, if I get 2 or 3 Thanksgivings in one day, dude, I'm done. I can't do
Mhm.
it. Like, I'm like, I start
Plus you got
getting
all that tryptophan in you from all that
yeah,
turkey too.
exactly. You need a couch at
Three,
least twice. So
yeah, 3 Thanksgivings is a lot of turkey to put
yeah,
into a human system in one day.
exactly.
Yeah.
Um, so were you like in a Jay Leno competition? Is that right? Or am I
Yeah, real early on.
really?
Yeah,
What was that like? I guess like,
I won a T-shirt.
oh really?
Mhm.
Nice. Do you still have it? Still fits?
I think it became a rag a few years ago. I had it for a long time, but then now it's a dust rag. Uh,
That's pretty
yeah,
cool.
that was the competitions are another thing that um, they're kind of dumb because you
Really?
you put this. I was younger, uh, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to enter this competition, but y- y- there's no such thing as the funniest comic, in any competition. There's no such that it doesn't exist.
All
Uh,
subjective, kind of.
yeah, it's all subjective,
Yeah.
and when you have judges or the audience polls or whatever, neither of those things are good. If the audience is going to poll it, then what happens is you bring your friends and your family to applaud and to make a lot of noise, and then you win the competition because you had the most votes. And if the judges are doing it, well, now it's a subjective thing with the judges, and they're going to pick the person that they personally thought was the funniest. And so there's just no objectivity in a comedy competition. That's the
That's
nature of the
fair.
beast. And so if you win it, and I've won a few competitions, and then I've lost competitions, and either way, it just doesn't mean very much. It doesn't mean that I was the best when you win, and it doesn't mean that you're no good when you lose. Um, but yeah, I put that on the credits because it had Jay Leno's name on it, and I said participated in the Jay Leno comedy competition, so everyone would go, oh, well, he's associated with Jay Leno. See, that's the thing. The stuff that your credentials are also mostly worthless. You list the places you've been and the people that you've worked with. In comedy, if somebody is listing like other comedians' name, has worked with this person and that person. He's worked with Dave Chappelle and worked with Nate Bargatze and works with. What that means most of the time is that Nate was also in the building or doing something, on the same stage. It doesn't mean that Nate is is approving or has stamped his,
Advocating.
yeah, he's not advocating for it. It just means that they were involved in the same event at the same time, which means nothing, just because you and Nate were in the same place at the same time, it means nothing. But you put that sort of stuff on your website because people look at it and they go, oh, this is a legitimate comic because he's done things with Jim Gaffigan and Nate Bargatze and
Right.
Bob Smiley. But it's like that it really doesn't mean much. There's a lot of hype and self-promotion.
I mean, you got to sell yourself at the end of the day. Like, it's what we're all kind of have to do in some sort of way. We build resumes, you know what I mean? So, like,
Yeah.
there's a point where you have to do that. So, I mean,
well, you do it. You don't have to do it as much as you used to because now the internet everything's a video, and so like I put clips from the dry bar and so on the website, and so people can look at it and they can go, well, we like him or we don't like him, and so I don't really have to do a whole lot of sales as far as this is where I've been and this is what I've done, because people don't care about that as much anymore.
makes sense. I mean, and plus, like, you're probably at a point where you get to pick and choose like what you want to do. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're like,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I always kind of did that. I was always like, I'm not sure I don't turn very much down because I've been doing this long enough now that most of the time when people contact me, they pretty much know who I am.
right.
In the early days, I would get phone calls and emails and stuff from people who had never seen me, because I hadn't been on television or anything like that. And so I would have to send them those videotapes that we talked about earlier. But that doesn't happen very much anymore. Most of the time, people have seen me somewhere, and so they contact me because they already know what I do.
Makes sense. I mean, you've established your you're well established, I guess, so everybody understands who you are.
Right.
Makes perfect sense.
Yep.
We can dabble into this. If you have time, we can do a quick segment just for hot takes. So I'll just ask these questions and you can respond accordingly if you agree or if you don't, or wherever you lie.
Can I storm off in a rage if you?
Absolutely. I want you to flip a table by the end of this. That's my goal here.
All right. Let me get it.
Kool-Aid Man jump through the wall or something. That'd be pretty cool.
I may have to bring a table over, but okay.
Christian audiences are harder to make laugh.
False, I would say.
Yeah,
the Christian audiences, for the most part, Christian audiences are easier because they tend to be more intelligent.
I like it.
Well, Christian audiences for them, that's changing somewhat, but yeah, the Christian audiences are used to listening, and they're used to paying attention, and they're thoughtful people, and so they usually drink less, and all of those things make for better audiences. So.
Clean comedy exposes weak writing.
Clean comedy exposes weak writing?
Yeah, that was my
exposes weak writing. I guess I'm not sure.
I can move. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, are you saying that clean comedy is weaker writing?
No, I'm saying more like clean. I'm saying it more as like you don't throw in a curse word to get an easy laugh. Like it makes writing better. That's what I'm asking. Like,
okay.
Do you agree? Does that make sense what I'm saying? Like, oh, I'm struggling with this. I'm gonna throw in a curse word. Everybody's gonna laugh. Then I can kind of break the audience.
Right. I would agree that there are certain words and certain phrases and certain standard things that you can throw into your material that bring more power to it. But yes, it's lazy. It's not a curse word is not a punchline.
Right.
And so, but a lot of times it will serve as a punchline and it gets a reaction. And so, yeah, but it's lazy. It's harder to be clean because you have to actually find those incongruencies and then articulate them. Um, and that's harder.
Makes sense. Funniest. Let me reread these. Sorry. Great bits make old stories feel new. How do you feel about that?
Great bits make
Old
old.
stories feel new. I feel like I wrote these at one point where I thought they made sense, and then I'm reading them out loud, and I'm like, I feel like I'm in Shakespeare right now. Like, what am I doing? I'm exposing myself unintentionally. Have you ever seen that episode of The Office where it's Kevin and he's like, small words make like less.
Yeah, where
That's
he
what I feel.
decides to
Yeah,
yell.
that's what I
Why
feel like
use
I
many
just did.
word when one word do trick?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly what I feel like I just said. I'm like, what is happening? Right. Anyways, what's something else that I could say off the cusp here?
What's your, well, one, I should say, do you think there's a lot of humor in the Bible, biblical stories? And if so, what do you think is the funniest interaction you might remember throughout the
From the
Bible?
Bible,
Yeah.
there's quite a bit of humor in the Bible, but it gets lost in the translations quite a bit. You know, there's a structurally the Bible's not really structured like humor,
Mhm.
but there are a few places where Jesus would speak in exaggeration and hyperbole, and his metaphors were very uh, incongruent. You know, he would call the Pharisees whitewashed tombs,
Mhm.
which is on the outside they look great, but on the inside they're full of bones, and that's a that's a pretty solid word picture, but it doesn't get laughs from us because it's not the sort of thing that we don't
Yeah.
talk like that. When
Yeah.
he says that before you try to take the speck out of your brother's eye, you should take the plank out of your own eye.
I think
Mm,
that's a funny line.
Well, yeah, it is funny, it's a picture, and but we don't necessarily laugh at those anymore because
right.
Mhm.
they're structured different. Um, so yeah, there's humor in the Bible, and there is, uh, you know, God has a great sense of humor. Like when the Philistines uh, were going against the Hebrew people, and God um, punished them. He gave them hemorrhoids. He made their hemorrhoids swell up, and in order to get past that, they had to fashion like golden hemorrhoids. They had to make little like pieces of jewelry that were hemorrhoids. And it's like, I don't know how to interpret that other than just pure comedy. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't take that seriously, right?
Right, right. Yeah.
Um, and so there's a lot of yeah, there's a lot of humor in the Bible, but it gets overlooked, and um, I'm not sure that we can. I'm not sure how you could fix that other than just you know just
You had a quote in I think it was in one of your bits where you're like, he's like, oh, a Christian lady always asks me like, do you think God has a sense of humor? And I'm like, of course he does. Like he created us, didn't he? And when you said that, I was like, man, duh. Like, why didn't I ever think of that? It's 'cause I'm not John, that's why. But but like, yeah, it was. I
well
didn't even
every
go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
well everybody has some stupid in them. That's my That's the thing that everybody has some stupid in them, and that stupid is there so that other people can laugh at you. It's so that people can see you're stupid and they can laugh at you and they can mock you. That's why it's there, and it serves a purpose of it serves two purposes. The first purpose is to give somebody else joy, because laughter is from God, and it also serves to keep you humble, to keep you from buying your own hype, basically, that I'm kind of a big deal. And so both of those things happen simultaneously through one, through one instance of comedy. And yeah, I think that the culture has certainly forgotten how to laugh. The culture takes everything that they do and say so seriously now. Everybody needs to be taken very, very seriously, because they've got these thoughts and they know what's wrong with the world, and they've been through things, and their lived experiences have been very difficult, and they need sympathy and compassion. None of that stuff is funny. And it's very self-absorbed, and it's very selfish, and it doesn't help your neighbor to constantly be whining about how awful your life is.
Yeah.
But God has given us this thing called humor, and humor literally gives you the chance to complain, but you do it in an entertaining way. Humor is all based on things falling apart. Everything is up in upheaval. Things are not as they should be, and I'm noticing it. But I'm saying it in such a way that people are like, oh, that's really funny, and so say more. You're allowed to complain and bellyache if you're funny while you're doing it.
Yeah.
And that's what Christians need to embrace. You need to lean into your stupid, lean into all of those things that are mockable, and let people mock you, because that's not happening in the culture. The culture is deathly serious about everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely for sure.
Yeah, I think I was trying to think of some other funny instances in the Bible. I think it's Elijah who was complaining to God and said, just kill me. I just want to die. And then God was like, you just need a nap and some good food.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
I just think that whole interaction is just hilarious.
yeah. Why don't you just eat and take a nap, and you'll feel better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I bet when we obviously we all go through our different struggles in life, but I bet sometimes God is just looking down and us probably giggling to himself you'll get over it, don't worry, you're over dramatizing this, but everything's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Like a
Well,
kid. Yeah.
if you really stop and think about all of the stuff that's going on in the world right now, you don't even have to think about the world. If you just go outside your house and stand in your front yard and think about all of the activity that's taking place. Every plant is made up of countless cells, and each of those cells is made up of a whole bunch of little microscopic machines that are cranking away, keeping that cell alive, and then that cell is interacting with the other cells, and that's every blade of grass and every leaf and every flower. And then it's every insect, all of the ants and all of the bees and all of and then it's all the other animals, all of the raccoons and all of the birds and all of that. And then you start to think about yourself, and we're just in your front yard now. So in every cell in our body is basically a universe of little machinery and that's every cell, and God is overseeing all of that. And so when I have a bad day, when things are not going as I think they should go, I will stop now and go, yeah, but but there is so much activity just in the tip of my finger. There's more activity than I can even comprehend.
Yeah.
And God is keeping track of everybody's fingertips all at the same time. And so that has helped me quite a bit in recent years when I'm feeling like I'm getting the short end of the stick. I'm not getting the respect I should have. Things should be different. It's like, man, there's a lot of stuff going on that God is completely in charge of. And so I think he kind of knows that I need to buy groceries this week. I think he kind of knows that I've got COVID and I would like to feel better. I think, at some level, he knows all of that.
Yeah.
Keeps track of it.
Yeah. Well said.
Absolutely. Yeah. For whatever reason, it made me think of, I believe it was you who said, like, you don't want God as your neighbor, or I gotta think of how you said this, but it's like, do you think he knows that I did that? It's like, of course he knows. Like, why wouldn't he? Here, put up the gated privacy fence. He's still gonna know. Like,
right.
Remember when I think it was either today or yesterday, I sent you an Instagram reel of like when you do something cool and no one's around to witness it. So then you just take a few seconds and then it's like the person was making a joke like, and he ended up looking up like, did you see that? And then it was like a whole like meme with God saying, yeah, I saw that. That was really cool. And then you dap up God.
literally, but
yeah, he's always there. He's witnessing everything. He knows exactly what we're doing, what we need. And
right.
nothing goes unnoticed. And that's why Jesus encourages us to go to him in secret, to not to not pray or do things to be seen by others, but be authentic with God, like in your own private place, because he will reward you in the private place.
Yep.
Well, I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. My segment kind of fell through but we certainly appreciate you having you on. It's been an absolute blast. Yeah, it's been super cool just to like get a firm understanding and the behind the scenes of what it's been like, and it's not always chalked up to what everybody thinks it might be. And I think that's like a big step away is, like the grass isn't always greener. Like I've always been told that the grass isn't always greener. It's greener where you water it, right? So like some people don't always acknowledge that and think someone else has an extraordinary life, but on the inside, it's like, dude, do you really want to live like that? Like, so I think that's a really great way of approaching it. And also just mentioning like be true to who you are, like don't let things around you, worldly things, fleshly things, manipulate who you are and make you conform to something that you aren't. And I think that's a beautifully well said thing, because like people need to hear that, but also like it's like God made us in his own image, or we are made in his image. So like just be loyal, faithful, and like you said, just stay within the box and everything's gonna be okay. So
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
But we can go ahead. I'm sorry. I
appreciate you having me on. I've enjoyed talking to you guys.
Absolutely. We can pray out and then yeah.
Go for it.
Father God, we thank you just this time of fellowship and gathering, and we just appreciate all that you've done throughout our lives and what you're continuing to do. We pray for all the listeners, and we just ask you to work your way with them, whatever they're going through, whatever situation it is. I pray that they bring it to you and that they just release it and nail it to the cross, Heavenly Father. God, we just ask you to guide and direct our lives and just in our daily lives, and no matter the situation that we become fixated upon you. Lord, we love you. We thank you. In your heavenly name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Man, thank you again. Thank you so much, John. We've had a blast.
My pleasure.
All righty.